take you to our first guest, Alfred Adask. He's been a researcher, an activist, an author, and a whole lot more. Mr. Adask, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
So you could tell us some about your background and the case that brought you really deeply into the heart of this whole system.
The case that brought me deeply into the system was back in 1983, which was a divorce, and I suffered what I thought was a great injustice, and I became a student of the legal system, and I've stayed there ever since. But the case that's really made a big difference is I was one of 7 defendants sued for the manufacture and distribution of a controlled substance. And I was added, the case started in 2001. I was the last defendant added in 2006. I was added. The controlled substance was colloidal silver. It's an inexpensive antibiotic. And I didn't have anything to do with manufacturing. I was just fiduciary for a trust, at least a little bit of equipment to one of the corporations that manufactured the product. This was instigated by the FDA, and we were being sued. Each defendant was being threatened with fines of $25,000 a day. That's $9 million a year. That's a nice chunk of change, and it absolutely focuses your mind. And you start defending against a lawsuit where you're being sued by the Attorney General of Texas for $9 million a year. You pay attention. It focuses. Well, I started reading the relevant drug laws, and when we read the Texas Health and Safety Code, section 431.002, subsection 14, it defined the meaning of drug. And it says in part that drug means, and then articles, yada, 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 in the mitigation, treatment, or prevention of diseases in man or other animals. And the first time I saw the phrase man or other animals, I thought, why, you damn fools. You don't know what you're writing there. It's not man or animals, it's man or other animals. They are defining drugs on the presumption that the people are animals. And I thought it was inadvertent the first time I saw it. And then it turns out later on in the same definition, the word man or other animals turns up a second time. And I began to realize this isn't an accident. We looked at the federal definition of drugs, Title 21, Section 321G1. And again, same definition, refers to man or other animals. Well, I'm a student of the Bible, and I understand that under Genesis 1:26 through 28, it says, on the 6th day, God created man in his image and gave man dominion over the animals. And I understood right away, as soon as I saw this, I thought, if they're going to treat us as animals, they're doing it in violation of our freedom of religion. If you are a member of the Jewish faith or the Christian faith, or probably even the Muslim faith, if you're I assume that the Muslim faith has something similar to Genesis at their foundation. I don't know that to be a fact. But certainly for Jews and Christians, if the government is treating you as an animal, it's an absolute violation of your freedom of religion, which says you can't be an animal. 6th day says God created man in his image, man only, in God's image, and gave man dominion over the animals. By definition, I can't be a Christian and an animal. People can't be a Jew and an animal.
This stuff has been done on purpose. They've put it in global governance treaties, Agenda 21, etc., where they want to give rights to animals and take away our sovereign rights under the Bill of Rights, Constitution, but really, as you point out, the natural rights, God-given.
That's exactly right. We think the earliest instance we've found is 1906 Pure Food and Drug Act. And you can look in the Section 6 of the 1906 Pure Food and Drug Act. You can put it into the web. You can Google it. 1906 Pure Food and Drug Act. Look for Section 6. You'll see the phrase man or other animals to define both food and drugs. That means for over a century, the government has operated on the presumption that we are animals rather than men and women. And this is powerful, and it's important because this country started with the Declaration of Independence, which says we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. That's second sentence. Third sentence says that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, meaning that the purpose of government as envisioned by the Founding Fathers was to secure to every man, woman, and even unborn child their God-given unalienable rights. But those rights only accrue to men and women. They do not accrue to animals. And the government has no obligation to secure those unalienable rights to animals. Now, we advanced this defense. I devised a religious freedom defense, and I was pretty sure that it'd have to stop them, and in the end it did. It had, so far as I know, it's never been done before. But the reason they just dropped the case after investing 6 years and nearly $500,000 in this case, the Attorney General of Texas just dropped it. They didn't say goodbye. We just didn't hear from them anymore. We haven't heard from them now since 2007, going on 4 years since we've heard from them. The reason is because the war on drugs is based on the presumption that the people are animals. If this goes to court and someone were able to prove in court and get a jury and especially an appellate court to agree that people aren't animals, there goes the war on drugs. If the war on drugs disappears, it laid the foundation for much of the modern police state. The modern police state would disappear if this argument went to court. The police state gave us the prison industrial complex. I've been told 70% of the people in the federal penitentiaries are there on drug-related crimes. That whole thing collapses if we can pull this definition out from under them. All of the police state, the prisons, the rest of that, it's built in a large degree on a mere definition that's been laying here in the books. Again, we traced this back to 1906. And so far as I know, I'm the first one to read the law, first layman at least, to read the law and understand what it meant.
But I think the implications go back even further, because I've read only some really of Hegel and the other early psychologists from the 1800s who really tried to change that paradigm too, because they couldn't figure out how to manipulate the psyche of man. So through psychology, they decided to use the conditioned response and the other related mechanisms to treat man as an animal, and that rolled over into education and all the 20th century systems to control us from the top down. What is your take on that, sir?
Well, I agree with you 100%. And one of the other classic examples is the government's stress on the theory of evolution. The theory of evolution was pushed at the American people from the early 1900s, right about the same time that the Food and Drug Act defined the people to be animals. Insofar as people accept the theory of evolution, they have to accept the idea that they are mere animals. They're not surprised by the concept. But what they don't get, what they don't understand is, insofar as you accept the theory of evolution, you have to accept that the government is your master and you are nothing but livestock. On the other hand, if you want to go back to the creation theory out of the Bible, under those circumstances, you can be a sovereign and the government is your servant rather than your master. There are powerful political implications in the theory of evolution. Most people think, oh, it's just science. No, it's not. It's big time politics, and it's why government wants that theory of evolution. They want people taught, and they want people to believe.
And of course, it justifies the eugenics world state and the rest of it. Now, you got into how they were targeting you for selling colloidal silver.
Right.
What about the other silver currency? The other things like raw dairy, they've started trying to restrict. What happened to our natural right, to put things in our body as we see fit?
You don't have a natural right if you're livestock. If you're an animal, where's your natural right? You have no more rights. You have no more intrinsic rights as an animal than a chicken on a Tyson poultry processing plant. They can trim your little beak off and put you in there where you're just elbow to elbow with 100,000 other chickens, and if you don't like it, too bad for you. You don't have any significant rights as an animal. The only thing that causes the government to give us any respect at all is we are a very peculiar animal in that we understand how to use firearms. And the government, so long as we have firearms, they have a very serious problem with this particular group of animals. But if they can get that away, at that point in time, you're like an unarmed chicken, again, in the poultry processing plant. You're not headed for a happy ending.
Yeah, but they've had a headache disarming Americans, at least.
Oh, yeah, don't give up your guns no matter what happens. Don't give up your guns, but don't give up your dictionaries either. I've been telling people for some time, if you want to stop this system, you need to own at least as many dictionaries as you own firearms. And you need to become astute. You need to become very qualified at dealing with the English language. And insofar, if you become fluent in the English language, you can hold these people at bay. Again, we ran them off. They'd invested $500,000 in 6 years in this case. I understood I could read. That's the only reason we stopped them. I could read. I understood what man or other animals meant. And I'll tell you another thing. It's evidence that faith works. You know, we stopped these people with a freedom of religion defense. And it's evidence that it's not just mythology. There's foundation. There is power. If you can get into the Bible and actually understand it, there's arguments there. There's evidence there. And if you can use it properly, you can make these people back off. Now, it's not easily done, and it's not necessarily for everyone, but the point is it can work.
Well, the other thing, too, is not only is man not an animal, but man should never be the ultimate authority, because there's always conflicts of interest and the rest of it. That's Absolutely. In the Old Testament, too. Absolutely. So all the more reason for our individual rights. Well, we're going to cut it off there. We could talk for hours, of course. We really appreciate you joining us, Doctor. And the best website is?
Adask.wordpress.com. That's ADASK.wordpress.com.
Amazing. We'll have to have you back up soon. Thank you for joining us,
Glad
Doctor.
to do it. Thanks very much.
Okay, that was Alfred Adask.